What's a disproven parenting myth that way too many people still believe? To prevent allergies, avoid giving your child these foods until they are much older. It has been proven over and over again that exposing your child to traditionally allergy-prone foods in very small amounts when they are younger drastically reduces allergy potential, even to the point of doing so in utero. Having a kid will cause someone to step up, straighten out, grow up, mature, etc. That nonverbal kids don't understand what you say. This one is common in the autism community. That a child shouldn't be exposed to a second or third language until having mastered their native language. I've heard this so many times from people who have no idea about multilingualism. Keep peanut products away from them until older. Giving them smooth peanut butter when they are on solids not only adds a good source nutrition but reduces the chances peanut allergy. Dads are more than babysitters. It's been 20 years since I was a single father, but the attitudes towards men and parenthood haven't changed as much as they should have. Don't ask a dad if he is giving mom a break today. Don't assume dad doesn't know how to settle down their child. Don't stare at dad at the park when dad is there with his kiddos. And for God's sake, can businesses install a change table in the men's washroom? Picking up your baby too much will spoil them. FFS, pick up a crying child and meet their needs sometimes, which is just a need for comfort and bonding with their caretaker. Daughters are nightmares and sons are so easy to raise. The really disturbing part is women seem to believe this more than men. That love, respect, and fear are the same thing. They're fucking not. This destructive myth that we are owed respect and love from our kids. Nope, they are attached to us, yes, but love and respect are earned. Fear is not respect, guilt is not love. We chose to have kids, they had no say in the matter. It is incumbent upon us to reach them by mirroring the behaviors we value. Throwing a cup of cold water in the face of a child who is having a tantrum will end it. My mother did it to us as children and it only ever escalated the situation. The kid is still screaming, now also scared, crying and soaked. Who TF thought this was a good idea? Nobody regrets the kids they have, only the ones they don't. That you can tell if a stranger is a good parent by how their kid behaves in a random instance you happen to observe. Kids are resilient and will get over stuff without it correctly being addressed. No, we remember everything in our tiny and impressionable brains. A quiet child is a happy child. My son's class is filled with iPad children, and my God, do they all have about as much happiness and charisma as a sack of dead puppies. Men shouldn't change girls' diapers. Let a baby cry in the cot at night, otherwise it will start getting used to it and beg for attention all the time. Well, crying is basically the only thing a baby can do to attract attention, so duh. Letting them cry doesn't work and only stresses the baby and the parents out. Also, don't assume that because they are very young, they don't understand things. Toddlers are fucking smart and perceptive during their why phase. Explain things like you would explain to anyone else. Answer every single why. Trust their intelligence and don't treat them like morons. It will pay off later. You can spoil a baby by responding to its cries. If a baby cries, it needs something. I'm sure it's in here somewhere, but there's a lot of evidence that corporal punishment is contraindicated in disciplining a child for a multitude of reasons. One of my friends is a PhD psychologist who researched this, and even when she presents people evidence about this, they just say, well, I got spanked and I turned out fine, and it's like, well, did you really though? Making your children hold hands after they've been fighting with each other will bring them closer together. No, more often than not, the reality is that it will drive them further apart and precipitate resentment. It's not illegal to have the interior light on in your car while driving at night. My parents were liars. You should finish your plate because kids in Africa are starving. No. If I'm not hungry, don't force me to eat. Don't tiptoe in silence around your baby when they're asleep. Yeah, sure you'll wake up them once or twice, but teaching the baby to only really sleep in absolute silence is setting yourself up for many years of problems, not to mention what it does for them: insomnia, etc. Same for darkness, etc. You want your kid to be able to sleep through you having some friends over without having to all whisper to each other. Trust me. Your motherly instincts will just kick in and suddenly you'll love the baby and be an amazing mom. I'm sure that happens for some people. I have ASPD and have never felt that way towards the kid I gave birth to. That a child must have a sibling, otherwise they'll grow up lonely and sad. I've known people who never got along with their siblings. Giving drowsy medication will make sure they get a good night's sleep. Thankfully, it's legally considered child abuse now. My siblings and I grew up being dependent on Benadryl, putting us to sleep that we can't produce as much melatonin as we should. Now we all need supplements or crash hard after staying up for 3 days straight. That boys don't need the same emotional support and safety that girls receive. This is throughout their lives as well. We need the exact same amount and we need the exact same space. That only mothers know certain details about the child. Had this happen to me a few times. For example, my sister, who has some boundaries confused, but that's another story, saw some cute shoes. She sent an app to my wife asking for the current size, but hadn't had a reply yet. My sister then looks in shock when I casually tell her what my daughter's shoe size is, like why shouldn't I know this? Stranger danger, yet forcing them to hug their uncle who they are visibly not comfortable with, yet happy to hug other family members. Having a kid will change him into a responsible adult and all make him stay. That working 16-hour days sweeping chimneys or down in the coal mines builds character in a 6-year-old. Abusing and neglecting your children doesn't set them up for success as an adult or prepare them for the real world. That you have to be one. So many unwanted kids because of peer pressure and FOMO. Stranger danger. Much more likely to get taken, hurt, assaulted by a family member or friend. Threatening, scaring your child into submission. That there's a right way to parent. Clearly, I'm not talking about things that qualify as abuse. Breastfeed. Great. Bottle feed. Great if your baby is fed, that's awesome. Let the baby set the schedule. Great work to get your baby on a schedule that works better for you and your family. Great if your baby is healthy and cared for, that's awesome. And on and on. Every stage of parenting has some dichotomy of do it this way to be a perfect parent. Kids are all different. Families are all different. Do what works to develop an amazing human and keep your own humanness intact. That being cold will result in you getting a cold. My partner is 50 years old and still thinks that if she gets cold in the winter, she'll develop a cold. That it is okay to hit your child. If you give your children medication, you're a lazy parent who doesn't want to deal with your child's behaviors. Hear this a lot in ADHD circles. Truth is, in most cases, not medicating can do more harm than good. Also, why would knowingly force your teenager to go through severe depression, anxiety, and hallucinations when you can ease all of that with medication and therapy? Some kids need medications to get by in life just like some adults do. That children don't understand and they are just exaggerating when they say they feel sick, depressed, etc. If your child feels sick, take them to the doctor. If your child is mentally unwell, try to get them help. And I say this as a child that everyone thought was just weird, too energetic, etc. Forcing a child to share an item that they don't want to when it belongs to them is somehow a good idea. That you only have to put up with them for 18 years, and can kick them out as an adult. Maybe millennial parents forgot how traumatic that was. Kids today can't survive without financial support at least. Parents, listen up, kids are a lifetime commitment. You never get to cut off your child unless your actual life depends upon it. If your kids go outside the cold winter, they will get sick. Quite the opposite, not letting them outside in the winter increases their chances of getting sick. Spanking is fine. It's not, and research shows it has awful effects on children and leads to an increase in mental illness. People who say my parents whipped my ass when I misbehaved and I turned out fine typically didn't turn out fine. Sugar does not make your child hyper before bedtime. That you need to spank or otherwise abuse kids to make them obedient and respectful. That you need to constantly punish and otherwise establish dominance over children. That babies can be spoiled by holding them too much. Nope, just creates a stronger bond. That if you're a woman who smokes, you should continue smoking while pregnant because the stress from quitting can have a negative impact on the baby. I wish this myth would die already. The brief period of stress from quitting is nothing compared to the effects daily tobacco consumption will have on a developing fetus. You can't beat a disability out of a kid. That you automatically love your kids unconditionally. It took me many months to bond with our second kid. There have been double-blind studies of kids getting a sugar rush after eating a bunch of candy. It is completely untrue. Sure, kids shouldn't be eating a ton of sugar, but I roll my eyes every time I hear a parent laugh and say something about their kid's sugar high. Kids don't need their problems solved for them. They actually need support to solve them themselves. I think people often mix this up. Got to strengthen that circle of security. If you pick newborns up too much, you train them to be clingy, when in actual fact responsive parenting and skin-to-skin contact cuddles in baby stage promotes young children with more secure attachment. That spanking teaches kids to behave. No, what it teaches them is to use violence to solve their problems. Yes, they may fear you, but that doesn't mean they understand why the thing they did was wrong. If you let your baby cry, they will learn to self-soothe. Nope. Attachment research says that they actually just learn that no matter how hard they cry, you're never going to come. This is not a good message to internalize, and it can have negative implications for the parent-child attachment bond as the child grows. Finish your plate. Want obese kids? Make them finish their plates. Want people who just stop eating when they're full? Let them stop. You can spoil a baby by holding them too much. Shaving a baby's head will make their hair grow back thicker. Quite a tradition in Asian households. That if you don't want children, you should just get one, cause the motherly instincts will kick in and you will love the child. Neo, there's plenty of parents that does not love their kids. That it ends when they become adults and leave your home. That they need their parents to be cruel to them sometimes to toughen them up. Nope. Show them what it is like to feel safe and supported, and they will have an easier time at taking chances, by identifying abusive behavior and avoiding it, standing up for themselves. That babies should only be given bland foods. People were horrified by what I let mine eat, which was pretty much whatever they wanted, because we didn't keep junk or snack food in the house. They are teenagers now and pretty adventurous eaters, definitely not picky. The person who screeched the loudest about letting my 1-year-old have salsa while she was feeding her rice cereal and oatmeal now has 2 of the pickiest teenagers, and they are not polite about their dislikes. I'm convinced it's because she didn't expose them to different foods and flavors